Welcome back. Abraham Lincoln is possibly one of the most examined men in American history. So, is it possible to find new information? The well-known legal correspondent and TV host Dan Abrams joins us now with details about a recently discovered transcript and the new book he co-authored. It is called Lincoln's Last Trial. Good morning to you, Dan.
Good morning, Molly.
I think it is a legit point. It seems like there's been so much said, written, incredible movies, documentaries about Abraham Lincoln. You discovered something new?
And believe it or not, almost no one knew about this trial, including me. It's the only transcript that exists of any case that Lincoln argued. It's a really compelling murder trial. It happened 9 months before he got the Republican nomination. The transcript was only found in 1989, and yet it was kind of a footnote. And so my co-author and I dug into it and obviously read through the transcript, using that as sort of the base for the book, but then learned everything we could about all the details surrounding the trial, about Springfield at that time, in those days in early September 1859, but also went back and looked at Lincoln the lawyer, what brought him to this point. Why did he take this case 9 months before he ultimately got the Republican nomination? And we tell a story using that transcript of Lincoln that I think really hasn't been told. And one of the things that I've been relieved and appreciative of is that the Lincoln historians have generally been very receptive to this, because it's not something that they know much about. And so really learning about this trial was really exciting.
Is it surprising that the transcript still exists even?
Well, it's surprising that the family of the defendant clearly was passing it on from generation to generation, because it was only discovered after the death of the great-grandson of the defendant in his garage, in a chewed-up box with a yellow bow around it. So obviously the family knew they had something special in the fact that, you know, their relative had been represented by Abraham Lincoln in what had been at the time a high-profile case. It's just, in the context of so much else that Lincoln did, it got lost. And for someone who's covered high-profile trials my whole career, I can tell you that this case is as compelling as most of the murder trials that I end up covering.
What happened in the case? Can you give us a few of the highlights?
Yeah, so basically two neighbors, early 20s, are feuding. One of them, Greek Crafton, is much bigger than the defendant in this case, Peachy Quinn Harrison. Peachy goes and borrows a knife from a friend of his because he's worried that he's going to get in a fight with Greek, and that Greek's much bigger than him. Lo and behold, a couple weeks later, Greek comes into the drugstore where Peachy's sitting with the owner of the drugstore. Greek's brother, John, is already there. They walk up to Peachy. A fight ensues. Peachy pulls out the knife, stabs Greek, stabs his brother. His brother survives and becomes the star witness against Peachy. And Peachy ends up saying it was self-defense, with Abraham Lincoln representing him. And so, you know, it's a close case. It's a really interesting, close case. There are arguments on both sides, and that's why it was so important for Peachy to have a lawyer as good as Lincoln.
Yeah. Well, first of all, can you tell us whether or not Lincoln won the case?
Well, since it happened 160 whatever years ago, and you can certainly look it up and find out what the outcome is, I'll just say Lincoln did a really good job.
Got it.
Lincoln was a very effective lawyer. So yeah, that's the teaser with giving it away.
Yeah, and I've read that the book reads like a legal thriller, which is fun. But I also wonder, for you as a lawyer, what did you think about Lincoln's style and the way that he presented himself in a courtroom?
So Lincoln was known as someone who could bond with jurors. He was a people person. He wasn't a guy who was the statutes guy. His partner, William Herndon, was really the one who would be digging in very often on the law and precedent. Lincoln was the one who knew how to talk to jurors, and you see that in the context of the transcript. Just as important is as what he says is what he doesn't say, is when how he knows where to stop, to make a point and move on, not bore the jurors and know that you'll be able to tie it all up later. So there's just no question that Lincoln was an excellent attorney. And you see that in the context of his own words in this transcript that is the only one that exists of any case he ever argued.
That is so cool. I love it. A great premise for the book, too. Dan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And again, the book that you co-authored with David Fisher, it's called Lincoln's Last Trial. It was an instant New York Times bestseller, which is fantastic. And we appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mo. I appreciate it.